Is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
O my Jesus,
Forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those who most need thy mercy.
Queen of Peace,
Pray for us.
in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Warm greeting to all of you.
Good morning.
So Mirjana says, I would like to try to explain to you everything that has been happening here in Medjugorje. Maybe the best way would be to start from the beginning. To try to explain how everything started. Then the most important messages. And then you go on and ask whatever you may be interested in. So we will go 32 years backward. June the 24th, St. John the Baptist feast day, the day when nobody worked in the village. Ivanka and me, two girls who were 14 and 15 years old, wanted to be alone for a while. We went outside of the village and we took a walk along the foot of what we call the Apparition Hill today. We were talking about normal things. In one moment, Ivanka told me, I think that Our Lady is on the hill. Just like that. I didn't look. For me, that was impossible. Without even turning to look, Mirjana says, I replied to Ivanka, yeah, Our Lady has nothing else to do and she would come to two of us. So I left her standing there and I intended to go back to the village. But as I was reaching the first houses of the village, deep within myself I felt a call that I simply had to go back. When I came back, I saw Ivanka on the same spot. And she told me, look now, please. And among the rocks and bushes, I was able to see a woman in a long dress holding infant baby in her arms. Everything was very strange. Because nobody climbed the hills. There was not even this path that we have today that was made by the pilgrim's feet. And then now to imagine a woman in such a long dress with infant baby in the arms to go to that kind of hill. I was just gazing. And in the same moment, I felt all possible emotions at the same time. Fear, beauty, misunderstanding. I didn't know if I were alive or dead. What prevailed within me was simply to run away. And I ran away back home. And I said to my grandma that I think that I saw Our Lady. She told me, you'd better take the rosary, go to your room and pray to dear God, and let Our Lady be where she is. I didn't have strength to debate with her, because I wanted to be alone in prayer. Because only that way I was able to have peace. The next day, like every other day before, I was helping my uncles. I did not have a chance to see other visionaries. But around the same time when I saw Our Lady the day before, I felt the same call within myself. And I said to my uncles that I have to go back to the base of the hill. There was something calling me. They came along with me in order to see what was happening. Reaching the base of the hill, practically half of the village was already there. Because with every visionary, somebody from the family came along.
Mi smo vidjeli Gospu na istom mjestu.
And we saw Our Lady on the same spot.
Samo ovaj put nije imala dijete u naručju.
But this time she did not have baby in her arms.
I taj dan, znači 25.6.81. godine je bilo prvi put da smo došli ka Gospi.
So that day, June the 25th, was in fact the first day when we approached Our Lady.
Ona nam se predstavila.
She presented herself to us.
Rekla je, djeca moja, ne bojte se, ja sam kraljica mira.
She said, "My children, be not afraid. I am the Queen of Peace."
I tako su počela naša svakodnevna ukazanja.
And that is how our daily apparition started.
Vrlo kratko smo imali ukazanja na vrtu.
Very shortly, we were having apparitions on the hill.
Jer ko što sam im rekla već, to je bilo vrijeme Jugoslavije, vrijeme komunizma, odmah je došla policija sa psima i opkolila brdo.
Because as I already told you, that was time of ex-Yugoslavia communism, and immediately police came with the dogs and they occupied the hills.
Ali tih prvi, ko bi išao na brdo, išao bi u zatvor.
And whoever would try to climb the hill would end up in prison.
Ali ti prvi dana Gospa je pokazala nekoliko čuda.
But those first days, Our Lady presented a few miracles,
Tako da je skoro svaki selo nešto vidio.
so that everybody from the village was able to see something.
Na primjer, pisalo je na nebu mir.
For example, in the middle of the sky, you could see the word mir, which means peace, written.
To su vidjeli mještani.
Villagers were able to see that.
Onda je nestajao križ na križnici, pa je igra se Gospa odjevena u bijelo.
Then cross on the cross hill would disappear, and Our Lady dressed in white would appear.
I to su isto vidjeli.
They saw that as well.
Onda su bila dva ozdravljenja.
Then there were two miraculous physical healings.
I mještani videći to sve, poznavajući nas kao djecu, oni su nam povjerovali i pomagali.
So villagers seeing all of this and knowing us as children, they believed us and they were helping us.
Mi smo imali svako večer ukazanje na drugom mjestu.
Therefore, every night we would have apparition on a different spot,
Tako da se nikad ne zna prije gdje smo.
so that no one would know ahead of time where we would be.
Ja sam imala tako ukazanje sve do Božića 82. godine.
Such daily apparitions I had all the way until the Christmas of 1982.
Tad sam dobila 10. tajnu.
That is when I received the 10th
I
secret.
Gospa mi je rekla da izaberem svećenika kome ću reći tajnu.
And Our Lady asked for me to choose a priest to whom I will reveal the secrets.
Trebam reći njemu 10 dana prije šta će se desiti gdje.
I am supposed to say to that priest 10 days in advance what will happen and where.
7 dana ćemo provesti u postu i molitvi.
We will spend 7 days in prayer and fasting.
A 3 dana prije on treba reći svima.
And 3 days ahead of time, he is supposed to say to everybody.
On nema pravo izbora da li će reći ili ne reći.
That priest doesn't have a right to choose whether to say or not to say.
Ako prihvati tu misiju, onda treba činiti kako je Božja volja.
Because if he accepts that mission, he has to do it according to God's will.
Gospa uvijek kaže, nemojte govoriti o tajnama.
But Our Lady always says, do not talk about secrets.
Molite.
Pray.
Jer ko osjeća mene kao majku, a Boga kao svoga oca, nema straha ni od čega.
Because one who feels me as mother and God as father, that person has no fear of anything.
Ona kaže da strah imaju samo oni koji još nisu upoznali ljubav Božju.
Our Lady says, only those who have not come to know the love of God yet, those people have fear.
Gospa je rekla, ono što sam počela u Fatimi, ja ću završiti u Medjugorju.
Our Lady said, what I started in Fatima, I will accomplish, finish in Medjugorje.
Moje će srce pobijediti.
My heart will triumph.
Ako će srce naše nebeske majke pobijediti, onda čega se trebamo bojati.
And that if our Heavenly Mother's heart will triumph, then simply what to fear.
Kad je bilo to ukazanje za Božić 82. godine, ona mi je rekla da ja više neću imati svakodnevno ukazanje.
When that apparition on Christmas 1982 happened, Our Lady said to me that I was not to have her daily apparitions anymore,
Rekla je da će to biti jedan put godišnje i svakog 18. marta dok sam živa.
but that it would be only once a year on every March the 18th as long as I live.
A isto tako je rekla da ću imati i izvanredno ukazanje.
But she also said that I will have some extraordinary apparitions.
Ta su ukazanja počela 2. augusta 87. godine i traju dan danas.
And those apparitions started on August the 2nd, 1987, and still have been lasting on every second of the month.
I ta su ukazanja i molitva za nevjernike.
And those apparitions are also prayer for unbelievers.
Gospa nikad ne kaže nevjernik.
But Our Lady never uses that term, unbeliever.
Jer ti kad kažeš za nekoga da je nevjernik, ti si ga osudio, dao si svoj sud.
Because when you say that someone is unbeliever, you judge that person, you give your judgment.
A Gospa nikad ne sudi.
But Our Lady never judges.
Ona uvijek kaže, oni koji još nisu osjetili ljubav Božju.
Referring to them, she always says, those who have not come to know the love of God yet.
I ona traži našu pomoć.
And Our Lady is asking our help.
Kad kaže našu, ona ne misli samo na nas 6 vidioca.
When Our Lady says our help, she doesn't mean only 6 visionaries,
Ona misli na pomoć svi oni koji osjećaju nju kao svoju majku.
but help of all those people who feel her as mother.
Jer ona kaže da mi možemo promijeniti nevjernike.
Because Our Lady says that we are capable to change unbelievers,
Ali samo s našom molitvom i samo s našim primjerom.
but only with our prayers and our own example.
Ona traži da svoje svakodnevne molitve stavimo na prvo mjesto molitve za nevjernike.
Our Lady asks from us to put in our daily prayers in the first place the prayers for unbelievers.
Jer ona kaže, kad vi molite za njih, vi molite za vas i za vašu budućnost.
Because Our Lady says, when you pray for them, in fact, you pray for yourselves and for your own future.
Osim molitve, ona traži primjer.
Beside prayer, Our Lady is asking our example.
Ona ne traži od nas kritike.
She doesn't ask from us to preach.
Ona ne želi da mi hodamo i pričamo.
She doesn't want us to walk around and to talk.
Ona želi da mi našim životom pričamo.
She would like from us to talk with our own life,
Da nevjernici vide u nama Boga i ljubav Božju.
so that unbelievers can see God and God's love within ourselves.
Ja bih vas zamolila da to shvatite najozbiljnije.
Mirjana says, I would kindly ask of you to accept this in the most serious way.
Kad biste samo jednom vidjeli suze koje Gospod ima na svom licu radi nevjernika, ja sam sigurna da ste molili sa svim srcem.
Because if you were able just once to see the tears on Our Lady's face because of unbelievers, I'm so certain that you would pray from the bottom of your heart.
Jer ona kaže da je ovo vrijeme odluka.
Because Our Lady says, this time is time of decisions.
I kaže da je na nama koji kažemo da smo djeca Božja velika odgovornost.
And that we who claim to be the children of God have great responsibility.
Kad ona traži molitvu za nevjernika, ona bi željela da pokušamo na njezin način.
When Our Lady asks from us to pray for unbelievers, she desires that we do it in her way.
A to bi bilo, kako sam ja razumjela, ovako.
And the way I understood it would mean,
A prvo osjetiti ljubav za njih.
first, to feel love for them.
Osjetiti ih kao našu braću i sestre koji nisu bili sretni kao mi da upoznaju ljubav Božju.
To feel them as our own brothers and sisters who were not lucky enough as we were to come to know the love of God.
I tek kad to osjetimo možemo moliti se.
And only once we feel like that, we will be able to pray for them.
Nikada ne suditi, ne kritizirati.
We should never judge or criticize.
Jednostavno voliti ih, moliti za njih
We should simply love them and pray for them.
i dati im svoj primjer.
Or know for them our own example.
Svako od nas ima nevjernika.
Because every one of us has an unbeliever.
Ili u kući, ili blizu kući, ili na poslu.
Maybe in our home, in our neighborhood, at our working place.
I mi bismo se trebali zapitati da li vidi u nama Boga i ljubav Božju.
And we should ask ourselves, can that person see God and God's love within ourselves?
Kad sam rekla da Gospod ne traži da mi pričamo, ja nisam mislila da samo moramo šutiti.
When I said that Our Lady would not like from us to talk, I didn't mean that we should keep quiet all the time.
Prvo bi trebao naš život govoriti.
But first of all, our life should be speaking.
A ako mi molimo, onda ćemo mi shvatiti kad možemo nešto reći.
And if we pray, then we will be able to understand and know when is the right time to say something.
Jer će onda kroz nas Isus govoriti.
Because it will be Jesus who will be speaking through us
A
then.
ako mi ne molimo,
But if we do not pray,
naše su riječi prazne
our words are empty.
i mi činimo suprotno.
And we're doing only opposite.
Ja ću vam dati jedan simpatičan primjer što se meni desilo.
Let me give you a cute example that happened to me.
Vidjeli ste da je naša crkva u Medjugorju puna.
You notice that our church in Medjugorje is always packed.
Jednu večer kad sam ja došla u crkvu, htjela sam sjesti, imam malo problema s leđima.
An evening when I came to the evening mass, I intended to sit because I have a problem with my back.
I vidjela sam malo mjesto u jednoj klubi.
And I noticed there was a little bit of space in one bench.
I ko mene su bili hodočasnici iz Italije.
And around me were pilgrims from Italy.
I ja kad sam sjela, oni su svi počeli pjevati.
When I sat down, they all started shouting at me.
Ustani se, to je naša kluba, mi smo došli prije.
Stand up, that is our bench. We were the first to come. All of them together as one. I stood up and kept quiet.
Onda je došla jedna gospođa koja je bila dio te grupe.
And then a woman who was a member of that group came in the meantime.
Ona me prepoznala.
She recognized me.
Ona im je rekla da sam ja jedna od vidioca.
And she told them that I was one of the visionaries.
Onda su mi nudili čitavu klubu.
After that, they offered me the whole bench. But why am I saying this to you?
Šta mislite da sam ja bila jedna nevjernica koju je Gospod pozvala ovdje u Medjugorje?
Imagine if I were an unbeliever who was invited by Our Lady to come here to
I
Medjugorje,
po prvi put u životu ulazim u jednu katoličku crkvu.
and who was for the very first time entering into a Catholic church.
A unutra su oni koji kažu da poznaju ljubav Božju.
And inside are those who claim to know the love of God.
A mene čekaju na taj način.
And they welcome me in such a way.
Da li bih ja još ikad ušla u katoličku crkvu?
Would I ever enter into that Catholic church?
Čija bi to bila odgovornost?
And whose responsibility would that be?
To je ono što nam Gospod želi.
Well, that is what Our Lady desires from us.
Da budemo primjer.
To be an example.
Da se vidi u nama, u našem životu, a ne u našim riječima.
So that it can be seen in us, in our own life, and not in our words.
Jer svako od nas može naučiti lijepo govoriti.
Because every one of us can learn to speak nicely.
A Gospa želi da život priča.
But Our Lady desires that our life speaks.
Ovim ukazanjima u Medjugorje, ona je svakom od nas 6 vidioca dala jednu misiju.
In these apparitions in Medjugorje, Our Lady gave to every one of us visionaries a mission to pray for.
Moja misija je molitva za nevjernike.
My mission is to pray for unbelievers.
Vicka i Jakov mole za bolesne.
Vitska and Yaakov pray for the sick.
Ivan moli za mlade i za svećenike.
Ivan for the youth and for the priests.
Marija za duše u čistilištu.
Maria for souls in purgatory.
I Ivanka za obitelj.
And Ivanka for families.
Ali najvažnija Gospina poruka koju ona često ponavlja je sveta misa.
But Our Lady's most important message that she constantly repeats is the Holy Mass.
Ali ne samo nedjeljom.
But not only on Sunday.
Kad smo mi bili djeca na početku kazanja, ona nam je rekla:
When we were children, at the beginning of the apparitions, Our Lady said to us,
ako trebate da birate između viđenja mene i svete mise, uvijek izaberite svetu misu.
if you have to choose between seeing me in the apparition or attending the Holy Mass, you should always choose to attend the Holy Mass.
Jer za vrijeme svete mise, moj sin je s vama.
Because during the Holy Mass, my son is with you.
U svim ovim godinama ukazanja, Gospa nikad nije rekla molite i ja ću vam dati.
In all these years of the apparitions, Our Lady never said, pray and I will give you.
Ona uvijek kaže molite da mogu moliti svoga sina za vas.
She always says, pray so that I can pray to my son for you.
Uvijek je Isus na prvom mjestu.
Jesus is always in the first place.
Mnogi hodočasnici kad dođu u Medjugorje misle da su mi vidioci privilegirani.
Many of pilgrims, when they come to Medjugorje, they believe that we visionaries are privileged.
Da je dosta reći nama jer nas Bog sluša više nego ostale.
They think it's enough to say to us because God accepts our prayers better than the prayers of other people.
A takvo razmišljanje je pogrešno razmišljanje.
But that way of thinking is wrong.
Jer za Gospu kao za majku nema privilegovanih.
Because when it comes to Our Lady as mother, she simply doesn't have privileged children.
Mi smo svi za nju samo njena djeca koja ona bira za različite misije.
For her, we're all just her children that she has been choosing for different missions.
Nas 6 da preko nas da poruke.
She chose 6 of us in order to give the messages.
Ali je izabrala svi u vas.
But she chose every one of you.
Jer ona je rekla u poruci koju je dala jednom 2. januara gdje se baš vama obraća.
Because in one of her messages on January the 2nd, Our Lady said words in which she's directly addressing you.
Ona je rekla, draga djeco, ja sam vas pozvala.
She said, my dear children, I invited you.
Otvorite svoje srce, pustite mi da uđem.
Open your heart, allow me to enter.
Da mogu napraviti svoje apostole od vas.
To be able to make you become my apostles.
Znači, svi imamo istu važnost za našu nebesku majku.
It means that we all have the same importance for our mother.
Nema onih koje Bog sluša više, ili koji sluša manje.
There are no those who God listens to more or less.
Mi smo svi samo njegova djeca na zemlji.
We're all just his children on earth.
Ja sam to naučila na samom početku ukazanja.
I learned that at the very beginning of the apparitions.
Jer možda ste primijetili da ja kažem moji ujaci, moja baka.
Maybe you noticed that I mentioned my uncles, my grandma,
Jer ja sam jedina od nas 6 vidioca koja nije rođena i odrasla u Medjugorju.
because I'm the only one out of 6 visionaries who was not born and who did not grow up here in Medjugorje.
Moji su roditelji odavde.
My parents are from here.
Ali kad su se vjenčali, otišli su živjeti u Sarajevo.
But after they got married, they went to live in Sarajevo.
Tako da sam ja odrasla s njima.
So I grew up with them.
Ali ovdje sam dorasla uvijek jer ovdje bi bila sva obitelj.
But I was coming here constantly because my entire family was here.
I kad su počeli ukazanje, komunisti su htjeli razrušiti sve.
Because when apparition started, communists wanted to destroy everything.
I oni su me vratili u Sarajevo.
And they brought me back to Sarajevo.
Ja nisam željela.
I didn't want it.
Jer ovdje je bila mnogo drugačija situacija.
Because here situation was much different.
Ovdje su bili njih 5 zajedno.
5 of them were here together.
Onda ovdje su svi bili Hrvati.
And then everybody here is Croatian,
I policija.
even police.
A to su Hrvati su katolici.
And Croats are Catholics.
A u Sarajevu muslimani i komunisti.
And in Sarajevo, Muslims and communists.
I ja sama s mojim roditeljima i bratom.
And I was alone with my parents and my brother.
Niko nam nije smio doći.
Nobody was allowed to come to us.
Mi nismo smjeli ići nigdje.
We were not allowed to go anywhere.
Svako jutro je dolazila policija, različila sve u kući i mene vodila sa sobom.
Every single morning, police would come to our home, turn everything upside down, and they would take me with them.
Ja sam imala samo 15 godina.
And I was only 15.
A to nije kao u Americi, hoću socijalnog radnika ili odvjetnika.
But that is not like in America when you can say, I want my social worker, my attorney, my something.
Bila sama s njima.
I was alone with them.
I ja sam, vi ne znate kakve su komunistička ispitivanja.
You have no idea what communist interrogations are like.
I ja sam mislila, meni će Gospa pomoći.
And I thought, Our Lady will help me.
Međutim, ja kad bih imala ukazanje, ona bi mi rekla iste stvari njima ovdje.
However, when I would receive apparition, Our Lady would tell me exactly the same words as she would say to them here.
Ništa o meni i o mojoj situaciji.
Nothing about me and my situation.
Ja ne moram vam reći kako sam se osjećala sama i ostavljena.
I don't even have to tell you how abandoned and left alone I felt.
Ali poslije nekog vremena sam shvatila.
But after some time, I understood.
Za Boga nema privilegovanih.
For God, there are no privileged ones.
Ako ti je teško, ako imaš križ,
If you're facing a hard time, you have a cross,
uzmi krunicu i moli.
take the rosary and pray,
I Bog će biti uz tebe.
and God will be with you.
Kad sam to shvatila, bilo mi je lakše.
When I understood that, it was easier.
Onda sam vidjela i ovdje u Medjugorju mnogo puta poslije ukazanja.
And then here in Medjugorje, many times after the apparition, I was able to see
Ljudi koji dolaze da mi kažu da su ozdravili ili da su upoznali ljubav Božju.
people who would come to me saying that they were healed or they felt the love of God.
A ja mnogi od tih ljudi nisam uopće znala.
But many of those people I didn't even know.
Ja nisam pitala za njih.
And I did not ask for them.
Oni su imali srce otvoreno.
But they had an open heart.
I oni su pitali nebesku majku da pita svoga sina za njih.
And they asked Heavenly Mother to ask her Son for them.
Ja vam to govorim da bih vam rekla kad trebate majku, ne trebate vidioca.
I'm saying this in order to explain to you that when you need Mother, you do not need visionaries.
Vi trebate samo otvoreno srce.
You just need an open heart.
Jer Gospod uvijek kaže otvorite svoje srce, ja ću biti s vama.
Because Our Lady always repeats, open your heart and I will be with you.
Znači zavisi samo od nas koliko želimo da je nebeska majka s nama.
So it all just depends on us how much we truly desire our Mother to be with us.
Ako je iko privilegiran za našu nebesku majku,
If anybody is privileged for our Heavenly Mother,
ako gledate poruke svakog drugog u mjesecu,
if you refer to Our Lady's every second of the month apparitions messages,
vidjet ćete da su to svećenici.
you will notice that we can speak about priests.
Jer ona nikada ne kaže šta oni trebaju učiniti.
Because Our Lady never said what they should do.
Ona uvijek govori šta mi trebamo učiniti za njih.
But she always talks about what we should do for them.
Ona kaže oni ne trebaju vašega suda i kritike.
She says, they don't need you to judge and criticize them.
Oni trebaju vaše molitve i ljubavi.
They need your love and your prayers.
Jer Bog će suditi njih kakvi su bili kao svećenici.
Because God will judge them the way they were as priests.
Ali će suditi vas kakav je bio vaš odnos prema svećenicima.
But God will judge you the way you treated your priests.
Ona je rekla ako izgubite poštovanje prema svećenicima,
Our Lady said, if you lose respect for your priest,
izgubit ćete prema crkvi i na kraju prema dragom Bogu.
you will lose it for church and at the end for dear God as well.
Isto tako za vrijeme ukazanja svakog drugog u mjesecu,
The same way during the every second of the month apparitions,
kad nam daje blagoslov, ona uvijek kaže
when she gives us her blessing, Our Lady always says,
ja vam dajem moj majčinski blagoslov.
I'm giving you my motherly blessing.
A najveći blagoslov koji možete dobiti na zemlji je onaj od svećenika.
But the greatest blessing that you can receive on earth is a blessing coming from your priest.
To vas moj sin blagoslov.
When they bless you, it is my Son himself blessing you.
Isto tako je rekla ne zaboravite moliti za svoje pastire.
She also said, do not forget to pray for your shepherds.
Kod njih su ruke blagoslovljene od moga sina.
Their priestly hands are blessed by my Son.
Zato vas molim, kad se vratite u svoje župe,
That is why I'm kindly asking of you, when you go back to your parishes,
pokažite kakav treba biti naš odnos prema svećenicima.
show to others what our respect, our attitude towards our priest should be.
Ako vaš svećenik ne čini kako vi mislite da bi trebalo,
And if your priest is not doing the way you think he should do,
nemoj ići okolo i suditi ga.
do not walk around judging him.
Uzmi krunicu, moli Boga za njega.
Take the rosary and pray to dear God for him.
To je način da mu pomogneš,
Because that will be the way to help him,
a ne sud.
and not through judging.
Jer u ovom svijetu u kojem mi živimo ima toliko puno suda,
Because in this world that we're living in, there's people judge so much,
a ima tako malo ljubavi.
and there is so little of love.
A Gospa želi da smo prepoznati po ljubavi,
And Our Lady desires that we may be recognized through love,
a ne da uzmemo u svoje ruke ono što samo dragi Bog može.
and not to take in our hands what only dear God is supposed to do.
Samo On može suditi.
Only He may judge.
Meni je žao što vam ne mogu više reći o svemu tome zašto nas Gospa priprema sve ove godine.
I am sorry that I cannot share with you more about what Our Lady has been preparing us for all these years,
Ali vam mogu reći jednu stvar.
but I may tell you one thing.
Imamo ovo vrijeme, naše vrijeme koje mi sad živimo.
We have this time, our time that we are living in,
I imamo vrijeme triumfa Gospinog srca.
and we have the time of the triumph of Our Lady's heart.
A između ta dva vremena i most.
Between these two times we have a bridge,
A taj most su naši svećenici.
and that bridge are our priests.
I zato Gospa posebno u zadnje vrijeme inzistira na molitvi za njih.
That is why, especially recently, Our Lady insists that we pray for them.
Jer taj most bi trebao biti čvrst da ga možemo svi
Because that bridge has to be strong enough for every one of us to be able to cross it over.
Jer Gospa kaže sa svećenicima ću triumfirati.
Because Our Lady says, alongside priest, I will triumph.
Znači, bez naših svećenika nema ni triumfa Gospinog srca.
It means that without our priest, there's not even the triumph of Our Lady's heart.
Ona traži da vratimo molitvu obitelji.
Our Lady asks from us to pray in our families.
Ona kaže da ništa ne može ujediniti obitelji kao zajednička molitva.
Our Lady says, there is nothing that can unite the family like when you pray together.
I kaže da je velika odgovornost koju roditelji imaju ispred svoje djece.
And Our Lady says, parents have great responsibility in front of their children.
Jer oni su ti koji trebaju staviti korijene vjere u svoje djece.
Because parents are those who are supposed to put the seeds of faith in their children.
Jer djeca čine samo ono što vide u kući.
Because children do only what they see in their home.
Mi ne možemo govoriti našoj djeci o važnosti svete misije ako ne vide da je za nas na prvo mjesto.
We cannot talk to our children about the importance of the Holy Mass if they don't see that the Holy Mass is in the first place for us.
Ne možemo im govoriti o važnosti molitve ako ne vide nas da molimo.
We cannot talk to them about the importance of prayer if they don't see us praying.
Ja uvijek kažem jedan simpatičan primjer iz moje obitelji.
I always give a cute example from my own family.
Kad je moja starija kćerka Marija imala samo 2 godine, ja im nisam govorila o kazanjima.
When my older daughter Maria was only 2 years old, I did not speak to her about apparitions.
Mislila sam malena i ne može da to shvatiti.
I thought she was too little, she can't understand that.
Ali jedan dan dok se igrala s prijateljicom u sobi, ja sam je kontrolirala.
But one day while she was playing with her friend in the room, I was watching over.
I čuo sam da ova druga malecka kaže, ma mama vozi auto.
But then I heard this other girl saying to my daughter, you know, my mom drives a car.
I kako ja ne vozim, Marija je šutila koju sekundu.
And as I do not drive car, you know, Maria remained quiet for a moment.
Onda je rekla, pa šta ti je to, moja priča s Gospom svaki dan.
And then she replied and said, a big deal. My mom talks to Our Lady every day. So without even saying a word,
Ona je shvatila.
she understood.
Jer vidjela šta se dešava u kući.
Because she was able to see what was happening in our home.
Zato je važno da djeca vide da je za mamu i tatu Bog na prvo mjesto, to se sve ostane.
That is why it is important that children may see that for their father and mother, God is in the first place, and then everything else.
Gospod traži da postimo srijedi petak u kruhu i vodi.
Our Lady asks from us to fast on Wednesdays and Fridays on bread and water.
A meni je to nekako dođem uvijek da se smijem kad govorim o toj Gospodinoj poruci.
It always brings me to laugh when I speak about this message of Our Lady.
Na primjer, da bi se opravdala.
In order to justify myself,
Ja sam na jedan način odrasla s Gospom.
in a certain way, I grew up with Our Lady.
Kad odrasteš s njom, ne gledaš ovaj svijet na isti način.
And when you grow up with her, you don't look at this world in the same way.
Na primjer, za mene ne postoje nacije.
For example, for me, there are no nations.
Na primjer, kad neko kaže, ja sam Amerikanac.
For example, when someone probably says, I'm an American.
Ja se smijem.
I love, you know,
Ja znam koliko je to ispred Boga, uopće nije važno.
I know how meaningless that is in the eyes of God.
Jer za njega postoje samo njegova djeca na zemlji.
Because for him, only his children on earth exist.
Jer kad se jedan dan nađemo pred njim, on neće pitati da li sam ja bila dobra kao Hrvatica, da li ste vi dobri kao Amerikanci.
Because one day when we face God, he will not ask me if I was good as a Croatian or you as American.
On će pitati koliko smo ljubavi imali.
He will ask how much love did we have.
Meni je simpatično ovdje vidjeti u Medjugorju kako svaka nacija reagira na poruku o postu.
But it is so interesting still to see, you know, how different nations react to the same message, let's say, about the message of fasting.
Na primjer, Amerikancima je tipično pitanje.
For example, there is a very typical American question.
Možemo li bar kavu ujutru popiti?
Can we have at least coffee in the morning? And I say, yeah, why not?
Ali vrlo rano, prije nego što se Gospa ustane i vidi vas.
But make sure you do it early enough before Our Lady wakes up to see you. But this would be a typical American question. But Italian,
Oni su, njima ova poruka Gospra nikako ne leži.
they simply can't accept this message of Our Lady.
Jer oni imaju poslije milijun pitanja.
Because after that they have a million questions.
Koliko traje srijeda i petak?
How long is Friday or Wednesday?
Kao da nešto činiti.
As if I may shorten it or do something about it.
Pasta bijelo,
Can we have just white pasta?
Može li krizma sa
Can we have a bread with olive oil?
On čak je jedan njihov vrhunski sportista rekao.
One day a professional athlete told me,
Ja mislim da ti nisi razumjela dobro.
you know, I think you did not understand well.
Mislim da je Gospod tebi posluša ne svima nama.
I think Our Lady asked of you to fast, not all of us.
Ako vi niste nikada postali 2 dana u tjednu.
But if you never fasted twice a week so far,
Ako niste nikada rekli čitavu krunicu svaki dan.
if you never prayed entire rosary every day so far,
Ja bih vam preporučila da pokušate onako kako je Gospod s nama činila.
I would like to recommend you to do the way Our Lady did with us.
Ona prvu stvar što je tražila bilo je 7 oče naša Zdravo Marija, slavoci vjerovanja.
The first thing she asked from us to pray on a daily basis was Creed, and then 7 sets of Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory Be.
Onda poslije nekog vremena je tražila jedan dio krunice i da postimo petak.
Then sometime after she added one part of the rosary daily and to fast on Friday.
Onda je tražila drugi dio krunice.
Then she asked for second part of the rosary daily,
Onda treći dio krunice.
then the third part of the rosary
Da
daily,
postimo srijedu.
and to fast on Wednesday.
Išla je korak po korak.
Our Lady went step by step,
A to može biti primjer svima nama.
and that can be an example to all of us.
Jer kad meni kaže hodočasnici, kad se vratim kući molit ću krunicu svaki dan, postit ću 2 dana u tjednu, ja kažem ne možeš obećavati jer nećeš.
Because when pilgrims here tell me, when I come back home, I will fast twice a week, I will pray entire rosary every day, I say to that pilgrim, please don't say it because you won't make it.
Obećaj nešto što znaš da možeš.
But promise something that you know that you will be able to do.
I hodaj s Gospodom.
And walk with Our Lady.
Ona će ti pomoći kad padneš.
She will help you when you fall.
Jer jedina stvar koju ona želi je dati nam svoga sina.
Because the only thing that she desires is to give us her Son.
Mi možemo imati sve što postoji na svijetu.
We could possess anything that exists in this world.
Ali ako nemamo mir, nemamo ništa.
But if we do not have peace, then we simply have nothing.
A jedini pravi mir je samo onaj koji nam daje Isus Krist.
And the only true peace is peace given by Jesus Christ.
I to je ono što naša nebeska majka želi svoje djeci.
And that is what our Heavenly Mother desires for her children.
Da imaju pravi mir.
To have true peace.
Da imaju Isusa.
To have Jesus.
Ona traži da se ispovijedamo barem jedan put mjesečno.
Our Lady asks from us to go to Holy Confession at least once a month.
Ona kaže da nema čovjeka na zemlji koji nema potrebu za mjesečno ispovijed.
Our Lady says there is no man on earth who doesn't have a need of a monthly confession.
I ja bih vam htjela kao sestra preporučiti
And as a sister, I would like to recommend you.
da ste već toliko mnogo učinili za našu nebesku majku.
Since you did already so much for our Heavenly Mother,
Ostali ste svoje kuće, svoje obitelji, jedan dug put,
you left your homes, your families, you took a long journey,
a sve radi njene ljubavi.
and all of that for her love.
Učinite i taj korak.
Do even that step.
Ispovijedite se.
Go to confession.
Jer samo čisto srce zna primiti darove.
Because only pure heart knows how to receive the gifts.
A pogotovo što ćemo mi u nedelju biti svi zajedno ispred naše nebeske majke.
And especially because on Sunday during the apparition we'll all be together in front of our Heavenly Mother.
Bilo bi lijepo da su nam čista srca.
It would be nice to have pure hearts.
Traži da vratimo Bibliju u obitelji.
Our Lady asks from us to bring back the Bible in our families.
Ona meni kad da poruku, ona meni ne objašnjava.
When Our Lady gives me a message, she doesn't explain that message to me.
Ona mi je da na isti način kao što i ja kažem vama.
She gives it to me the same way as I give it to you.
Na primjer, ove poruke svakog drugog mjeseca.
For example, these every second of the month apparitions, the messages.
Vi koji pratite, vidjeli ste da su dosta duge.
Those of you who have been following it, you know that they are very long.
I ja, na primjer, se sjećam te poruke točno, kako je Gospa rekla, samo minut, 2 poslije ukazanja.
And I can remember that message, word by word, the way Our Lady said, only within a few minutes after the apparition.
Zato je uvijek Niki tu.
That's why I always have Mickey next to me.
Ja mu kažem poruku,
I dictate him the message,
jer već kad odem u svoju sobu moliti,
because later on when I go to my room to pray,
ja mogu samo reći o čemu je govorila,
I can only say what she spoke about.
a ne mogu ponoviti od riječi do riječi.
But later I cannot repeat word by word.
I ja trebam poruku napisanu,
And I also need a message in a written form
da mogu kroz molitvu shvatiti šta Bog želi meni reći.
to be able to understand through my prayer what God desires to tell me.
Tako isto kad Gospa kaže vratite Bibliju.
So when Our Lady says, bring back the Bible,
Ja mislim da mi svi imamo Bibliju u obitelji.
I believe that we all have a Bible in our family.
Ali Gospa želi jednostavnu stvar.
But Our Lady desires a simple thing.
Da je otvorimo svaki dan.
To open it every
Da
day.
pročitamo 2-3 rečenice, nije uopće bitno koliko,
To read a few sentences, doesn't matter how much.
ali da Biblija živi u našoj obitelji.
But that the Bible may live in our family.
A ne da imamo i da kažemo imamo Bibliju, ali nikad ne diramo.
And not to have it and then to be able to say, yes, we do have it, but we never touch it.
A Gospa kaže da su u Bibliji odgovor na sva naša pitanja.
And Our Lady says, in Bible are hidden all the answers to all the questions we have.
Eto, to bi bilo ono što ja uvijek moram reći,
Well, this will be what I always have to say,
što je najvažnije.
what would be the most important.
A sada vi pitajte ono što vas zanima.
Now it's your turn and ask whatever you may be interested in.
Sigurno sam mnogo toga zaboravila,
Most likely I forgot many of those things,
ali vi pitajte.
but you ask.
Zato smo se sastali.
That is why we have gathered. Just raise your hand when you have a question. Yes?
Mirjana, thanks for talking with us this morning. Appreciate it. My question is about prayer. How can we pray better? Is it better to pray outwardly, inwardly? When we reflect on praying the rosary, do we think about Mary? Do we think about Jesus? Do we think about the
Ja
mystery?
sam vrlo sretna kad ovako jedna mlada osoba pita takvo pitanje.
I'm very happy when such a young person asks such a question.
Jer ovako odgovor bi bio jednostavan.
The answer would be simple.
Probaj moliti sa srcem.
Trying to pray with heart.
Jer to je ono što Gospa želi.
That is what Our Lady desires.
Ja sam to shvatila na ovaj način.
I understood it in this way.
Da molitva sa srcem je.
That the prayer with the heart is,
Kad ja molim,
when I pray,
na primjer ako kažem Oče naš,
for example, if I say, Our Father,
da ja u svom srcu osjetim da Bog je moj otac.
that I feel within my heart that God is my Father.
Znači da svaka riječ koja izađe iz mojih usta
Which means that every word that comes out of my mouth
prođe kroz moje srce.
would go through my heart first.
Ja bih vam preporučila da ne sudite svoju molitvu.
I would like to recommend you not to judge your prayer.
Nemojte gubiti vrijeme.
Don't waste your time,
Jer uvijek se može moliti bolje.
because you can always pray better.
Od nas niko ne može reći ja molim savršeno,
None of us can say, I pray perfectly well,
ja sam savršena osoba.
or I'm a perfect person.
Ja imam strah od takvih ljudi.
I personally have fear of such people.
Mi smo svi samo na putu ka svetosti.
We're all just on our way to holiness.
I koliko smo uspjeli, dragi Bog će reći.
How much did we succeed? Dear God will judge.
Ono što mi trebamo, kako sam ja razumjela od naše nebeske majke,
The way I understood what we need from our Heavenly Mother,
uvijek pokušati biti bolji.
we should always try to be better.
Bolje moliti, bolje postiti, bolje se obhoditi s ljudima.
To pray better, to fast better, to be better in our relation with people,
Uz njenu pomoć.
with her help.
Znači jednostavno, ti se samo prepusti majici u ruke.
You just surrender to Our Lady's hands. It's so simple. And be not afraid.
Za nju si važan, ona te voli.
You're very important for her and she loves you.
Father.
Yes?
In your opinion, which one is better? Structured prayers such as the Our Father or conversation prayer?
Both. For me, both is great.
Jer Gospod traži krunicu.
Our Lady requires rosary.
Ali ako mi molimo još,
But if we pray more,
ili ako imamo razgovor,
or if we have conversation,
ona se sigurno neće naljutiti.
she won't mind, definitely.
A moramo se šaliti.
We have to joke.
Jer ako hoćeš da budeš svjedok Božje ljubavi,
Because if you want to be a witness of God's love,
moraš se šaliti i smijeti.
you have to joke and smile.
Ti moraš na svom licu vidjeti radost Božje ljubavi.
You have to see on your face, smile, joy of God's love.
Jer ja se uvijek spomenem jednog momčića od 16 godina.
I always mention this young boy, 16-year-old.
On je iz Milana, iz Italije.
He's from Milan, from Italy.
I on mi je ovako rekao.
And he told me like this.
Ja vjerujem u Boga.
I believe in God.
Molim svaki dan.
I pray every day,
Ali ne idem u crkvu.
but I do not go to church.
Onda sam ja pokušala kao majka da mu malo objasnim
But then as a mother, I tried to explain to him a little
da ne može bez crkve, ne može bez oltara, ne može bez Isusa.
that he can't go without church, without altar, without Jesus.
On me onako žalosno gledao
With sadness in his eyes, he looked at me.
i on mi je rekao, ali znaš, ja kad uđem u crkvu
He said, you know, but when I enter in the church,
i kad vidim sve one žalosne, depresivne face,
And when I see all those sad and depressed faces,
ja odmah izlazim napolje.
I immediately go out.
Jer to je ono što moramo malo razmisliti.
That is what we have to reflect on for a while.
Šta mladi vide u nama?
What do the young people see in us?
Da li vide radost Božju
Do they see the joy of God
i nadu,
and hope?
ili vide depresiju i tugu?
Or they see depression and sadness?
Zato ja uvijek volim se šaliti i smijeti.
That is why I always like to joke and to smile.
Sve okrenuti na šalu.
Turn everything into joke,
Koliko je moguće.
as much as it's possible.
Jer vidi, niko od nas neće živjeti vječno.
Because you see, none of us will live forever.
Danas jesmo, sutra nismo.
Today we are, tomorrow who knows?
S Bogom se.
With God.
Znači, bitno je kako ovo vrijeme prolaziš.
Important thing is how you spend your time.
Jer ja mislim da će nas dragi Bog pitati samo jedno pitanje.
Because I believe that Heavenly Father will ask us only one question.
Koliko ste ljubavi imali?
How much love did you have?
Jer ako ti imaš ljubavi,
Because if you have love,
ako ti voliš ljude,
if you love people,
ti ne možeš ubiti, povrijediti, ukrasti, prevariti.
then you cannot kill, offend, steal, cheat.
Jer ti voliš ljude.
Because you love people.
Ti vidiš u njima Isusa.
You see Jesus in them.
Mislim da će nas Bog samo to pitati, ja to mislim.
Personally, I think that this is the only thing that God will ask us.
A nije to Gospod.
But that is not what Our Lady said. Yes?
Can you address preparation for the end times to put to rest people's false ideas of what they need to do?
Pa vidi, što znači kraj svijeta?
What does end of the times or world means?
Ja mogu umrijeti sutra.
I can die tomorrow.
I za mene je kraj svijeta sutra.
And then my end of the world will be tomorrow.
I ono što je važno je da sam ja kako ja osobno mislim.
And the way I personally think, it's important that
Sam ovaj moment spreman doći pred Boga.
that I'm ready this very moment to come before God.
A ne da razmišljam šta će biti.
And not to think about what will happen.
Biće Božja volja.
God's will
A
be
ja
done.
moram čekati spreman.
And I have to be ready for that.
Danas, sutra,
Today, tomorrow,
to niko ne zna.
no one knows that.
Do you have the history of Our Lady written down, or is that one of the other visionaries? So one of the six
Manje više da.
More or less I do have, Mirjana says.
that's on the parchment that no one can read. That's
A nije to
true.
No, that's not about that. No.
Ona misli na tajnu.
You're referring to secrets?
No, I thought that the history of Our Lady was. Oh, I'm not.
Je bio na normalnom profilu, normalnoj knjižnici.
Our Lady's life is just on a normal notebook, a normal
But
paper.
it's not released now yet until later.
Nije publikovan.
It's not published, it's not released now. Will it be released?
Pa bit će podijeljeno svima koje zanima Gospin život.
Mirjana says it will be given to everybody who is interested in Our Lady's life.
Ne knjiga, ne to.
Not like a book.
Kada neka reklama, ono, to će biti normalno podijeljeno podržaj.
Through some commercial something. It will be just given to pilgrims just like this. Yes?
Hi. I was wondering, it's like a three-part question, was how you really compare what Mary's personality is like, and also what makes her brings her the most joy that she sees in her children, and what makes her the saddest, particularly those that are.
Ona je majka.
Well, Our Lady's personality, Our Lady is mother.
Ja mislim kad to kažem da sam sve rekla.
I think when I say that I said everything.
Jer njena ljubav, njena brižnost,
Because her love, her care,
nikada ljuta, nikad nervozna.
she's never angry or nervous.
Uvijek sa puno ljubavi i bola.
Always with a lot of love and pain.
Mislim da je to baš majčinski.
I think that would be a motherly.
I da jedino to ona može tako.
That only she can do that.
Zato je ona majka Božja.
That is why she's Mother of God.
Jer ja sam jedan put pokušala biti kao Gosp.
On one occasion, I tried to be like Our Lady.
Pokušala.
I tried.
Svoje djeci, pospremite sobu.
And I said to my children, put your room in order.
Sa ljubavnim strpljenjem, kao Gospa.
With love, patience, like Our Lady does. And nothing happened. I repeated that in such a way 3 times. Nothing happened.
Onda kad sam zagalamila,
And then when I yelled,
sve je bilo u redu.
everything was okay. That is why I said there is only one Our Lady. And the second question,
Najsretnija je kad vidi Isusa u srcima svoje djece.
what makes Our Lady happiest is when she sees Jesus in the heart of her children.
A najžalosnija je kad vidi one koji nisu upoznali ljubav Božju.
And she's saddest when she sees those who did not come to know the love of God yet.
Jer ona kao majka zna šta nas čeka.
Because she, as mother, knows what we are supposed to expect.
I ona želi svu svoju djecu na pravom putu.
And she wants all of her children on the right way.
A i ona ne može biti sretna dok postoji jedan nevjernik.
And she cannot be happy as long as there is even one unbeliever.
Jer ona sviju želi ka Isusu dovesti.
Because Our Lady desires to bring us all to Jesus
Da bi bila sretna.
in order to be happy.
Zato ja nju nikada nisam drugog mjeseca kad nam ukazanja vidjela sretna.
That is why never on the 2nd of the month when I have apparitions I saw her happy.
Uvijek je ili žalosna ili odlučna.
She's always sad or decisive or determined.
Neka mene pitaju kakva je bila Gospa.
Because when people ask me, what was Our Lady like?
Ja uvijek kažem, pogledaj sebe unutra.
I always say, just look at your inner side.
Kakav si ti?
What are you like?
I onda je takva bila Gospa.
And then that's what Our Lady was like. Yes?
Has Our Lady appeared to you alone when you didn't know about, when there were mass amount of people around?
Uvijek mi dođe kad znam da će doći, nema iznenadnog ukazanja.
Our Lady always comes at the right time when I know that she's going to come. There's no sudden apparitions.
Jer ja se uvijek pripremam sa postom i molitvom.
Because I always prepare with prayer and fasting.
Jer ona ne dođe radi mene.
Because Our Lady doesn't come because of me.
Ja sam samo jedan prenosnik.
I'm just a transmitter.
How do we recognize the love of God in our everyday lives?
A vidi jutros.
Look at this morning.
Ustali smo se svi.
We all woke up.
Hvala Bogu, evo, svi smo zajedno, sjedimo.
Thanks be to God, we're all together, we're sitting.
Zar to nije ljubav Božja?
Isn't that the love of God?
Ja u svemu tome, u svakoj sitnici, tijekom dana prepoznam Boga.
In all these little things over the day, I always recognize God.
Za mene je ljubav Božja vidjeti vas ovdje.
For me, it is God's love to see you here.
Jer pomislite samo koliko ste se žrtvovali da biste došli ovdje.
And think about how much sacrifice you had to do in order to be here.
Zar to nije ljubav Božja?
Isn't that the love of God?
Ja u svemu vidim dragog Boga.
I see dear God in everything. Yes?
I think I asked you a coffee question last time I was here.
A nije jer.
You're not the only one.
Well, one of our priests, I asked him about does he fast, and he says he does sun up to sundown, and so then that brought up the question: is it, is it when you wake up to when you go to sleep? Is it midnight? When can you sigh? And I'm Italian too.
Are you sure you have no Italian blood?
And you asked me why I didn't speak last time.
I think that Our Lady's clear.
Srijeda, petak.
Wednesday and Friday.
A mi znamo koliko traje srijeda.
And we know how long is Wednesday, how long is Friday.
Ponovo se završava.
It ends at midnight.
Neki moji prijatelji ovako čine.
Some of my friends do like this.
Čekaju ponoć.
They wait for midnight
Sa stolom serviranim sa svom hranom.
with a table with all the food served on it. And they're waiting like this, watching the clock pass.
I čine ponoć.
And as soon as midnight rings,
Svi odmah počnu jesti.
they all start to eat. Yes?
Sometimes when I pray, prayers are really dry. I'm not really into it. What can you do for that?
Pa vidite, on nije jedini, mnogi tako kažu.
You're not the only one. Many people say like that.
Nemoj gubiti nadu.
Do not lose your hope.
Moj osobni savjet je,
My personal advice
ostavi malo krunicu sa strane.
would be like put the rosary aside for a while
Pričaj s majkom,
and talk with your mother,
s Gospom.
with Our Lady.
Reci joj zašto je tako.
And tell her, why is that so?
Šta je to što te muči, što ti ne da da se otvoriš?
What is it that is burning you, that doesn't allow you to open?
Sve ono što imaš u sebi Daj njoj
Everything you have within you, give to her.
i probaj moliti.
And try to pray.
I nemoj gubiti vrijeme sudeći svoju molitvu.
And don't waste your time judging your prayer.
Opet ću to ponoviti.
I will repeat it again.
Ti moli.
You just pray.
Bitno je moliti.
It is important to pray.
Jer ako bi čovjek htio živjeti,
Because if man would like to live,
mora jesti.
you have to eat.
Dobro, loše, srednje.
Good, bad, medium.
Ali mora jesti.
But you have to eat.
A da bismo mi imali odnos s Bogom,
But in order to have a relation with God,
moramo pričati s njim.
we have to talk with Him.
A molitva je naš razgovor s Bogom.
And prayer is our conversation with God.
Ako izgubiš molitvu, izgubiš i Boga, izgubiš razgovor s njim.
Because if you lose prayer, you lose God, you lose conversation with Him. Yes?
How do we know what God is asking of each one of us?
A ako želiš, bilo dobro znaš.
If you wish, you know it so well.
Jer Bog je uvijek jasan.
Because God is always very clear.
Ja uvijek kad nešto želim odlučiti,
Whenever I desire to decide something,
ja molim.
I pray.
I kad osjetim u sebi mir,
And when I feel peace within myself,
znači ja sam dobro odlučio.
it means that I made the right decision.
Znači molitva je odgovor za sve.
So prayer is answer to everything.
Can you describe for the children especially what Our Lady looks like when she appears to you and about the three angels that...
What Our Lady looks like? About the angels, Mirjana says, I never saw an angel.
Oh, she doesn't...
Ja mogu pokušati opisati Gospu.
I can try to describe Our Lady. That's the hardest.
Malo je veća od mene.
She's a little taller than me.
Mislim da se.
I assume so.
Jer ja sam uvijek na koljenima.
Because I'm always on my knees.
A Gospa uvijek jedno pola metra ovako recimo od zemlje.
And Our Lady is always like a foot and a half above the ground.
Ima uvijek sivu haljinu i bijeli vel.
She always has grey dress and white veil.
Osim za Božić za Uskrs kad je kao zlatne boje haljina.
Except on Christmas and Easter when her dress gets kind of golden color.
Ali ja kad kažem sivu zlatnu, to samo boje koje najviše liče na naša. Nije to naša siva, nije to naša zlatna.
But when I say grey or golden color, those are most alike to our grey and golden, but those are not our grey and golden.
Ima crnu kosu dugu.
She has black hair and it's long.
Jer ima vel, onda se vidi s desne strane ovako ovdje i ovdje, znači da je duga.
Because you can see it below the veil on the forehead on the right hand side and behind, which means it's long.
Ima plave oči.
She has blue eyes and she's wonderful.
Nisam ništa.
I didn't tell you anything.
Jer nemoguće opisati onu ljepotu koja iz nje dolazi.
Because it is impossible to describe the beauty that is coming out of her.
Kad smo mi bili djeca, mi smo je postavili dječje pitanje.
As children at that time, we asked her a childish question.
Pitali smo je, kako je moguće da si tako lijepa?
We said, how is it possible that you're so beautiful?
Ona nas je nasmiješila i rekla, zato što volim.
She smiled and she said, I'm beautiful because I love.
I rekla je, djeca moja, ako vi želite da budete lijepi, volite.
And she said, my children, if you want to be that beautiful, then love.
I kad je to kazanje bilo jako, vidio si imao samo 9 godina.
At that time, visionary Jakob was only 9 years old.
I kad je Gospod otišao, on je rekao nama ostalim vidiocima, ja mislim da ona ne govori istinu.
So when Our Lady left, he said to the rest of us visionaries, I think that she wasn't saying the truth. We all kind of attacked him, like, how do you dare to say that Our Lady is not saying the truth? He said, yes, but look at us visionaries. Some of us can love until the end of our lives, but will never be as beautiful as she says. Because he did not understand what kind of beauty Our Lady spoke. Even today, he doesn't understand anything. Mirjana says we lost hope about it. Yes.
You all have the same secrets?
Well, Mirjana says we never talk about secrets. Secrets are secrets. We among ourselves, visionaries, only talk about the missions that we have.
In learning to know Our Lady, I sometimes get confused. I know the Lord is the one that we always ask of, but to ask through Our Lady. What is the best way to do that?
kako ti želiš.
The way you wish.
Jer Gospa nikad nije rekla morate moliti mene.
Our Lady never said you have to pray to me.
Ona samo želi nam lakši način pokazati.
She just desires to show us easier way.
Jer, na primjer, na zemlji,
For example, on earth,
ako imaš jedno obitelj,
if you look at a family,
nekako uvijek djeca pitaju majku,
but it's somehow that always children ask mother,
a ona zna kako će stati.
and then she knows how to deal with father. Using simple words, I would explain it that way.
Ali ti ako imaš odnos s Isusom,
But if you have relation directly with Jesus,
nemoj se brinuti.
don't worry,
Jer to je ono što Gospa želi,
because that is what Our Lady desires,
da imamo odnos sa Isusom.
to have a relation with Jesus. Yes.
What advice or encouragement would you give to parents of young children on how to raise their children?
What advice to parents who have young children, how to raise their children?
Yes.
Za mene je uvijek odgovor bio ljubav,
For me personally, answer to that question was always love.
da osjete da su voljeni
That they may feel that they are loved,
i da vide da je Bog na prvom mjestu obitelji.
and to see that God is in the first place in the family,
Poslije sve ostalo.
and then everything else after.
Jer kad ja njima pokažem svojim primjerom,
Because when I show them with my own example,
onda mogu i neke stvari tražiti od njih.
then I can demand from them some things.
Meni je to bio, tako sam ja radila.
That's the way I did. Yes?
What about those who have children who have left their faith?
Vidi, ako smo mi njima stavili korijene,
If we planted seeds,
oni obično kad porastu odu,
usually when they're grown up, they leave.
hoće da probaju na drugi način.
They want to try a different way.
Neće onako kako su rekli roditelji.
They don't want to do it the way their parents told them.
Ali sa korijenima kojim smo im mi stavili,
But with the roots that we planted in them,
vratit će se.
they will come back.
Ja uvijek kažem roditeljima, nemojte ih tjerati, suditi, kritizirati.
I always say to parents, don't judge, criticize, or force your children.
Volite ih.
Love them.
Molite za njih.
Pray for them.
I stavite ih u Gospine ruke.
And put them in Our Lady's arms.
Oni će se onda vratiti.
And then they will come back.
Does Our Lady speak about why so many people have fallen away?
Why so many people have fallen away? Did Our Lady speak about that? Those are all unbelievers
Koji nikad nisu bili vjernici.
who were never believers.
Jer ja sam uvijek nekako, kako se kaže, može se reći i odlučna u tome.
I'm personally, I use the term maybe decisive about it, or determined.
Ono, kako bi se reklo, desnica.
I would be like the right wing.
Ne znam objasniti lijepo,
I can't explain it well, but
ali ili si vjernik, ili nisi vjernik.
whether you are a believer or you're not a believer,
Nema nešto između.
there's no something among or between.
Naprimjer, meni jedan gospodin rekao, ja sam uvijek vjerovao u Boga, išao sam u crkvu.
For example, one man told me, he said, I've always believed in God, I went to church,
I Bog mi uzeo moju ženu.
and God took my wife away from me.
Ja ne želim više tog Boga.
I don't want that God anymore.
Ne idem u crkvu, ne molim.
I don't go to church, I don't pray.
Ja sam mu rekla, meni je žao što ti ja to moram reći,
And I said to him, I'm sorry that I have to tell you,
ali ti nikad nisi vjerovao u Boga.
but you never believed in God.
Znači, vjeruješ u Boga kad tebi odgovara.
So you believe in God when it fits you,
A kad ti Bog da neki križ,
and when God gives you a cross,
kad tebe zamoli da nasloni svoj križ na tebe,
when He asks you to lean His cross on you,
ti ga ne želiš.
you don't want it.
Znači da ti ne znaš ljubav Božju.
It means that you do not know the love of God.
Jer simbol naše vjere je križ.
The symbol of our faith is cross.
Ako ga nemaš danas,
If you don't have it today,
imat ćeš ga.
you will have it.
Ne boj se.
Be not afraid.
Bitno je kako ga nosiš.
It is important how you carry it
Uz Božju pomoć.
with God's help.
Ja uvijek kažem, ako mi daš taj križ, nema me ostaviti sam.
I always say, if you give me that cross, just don't leave me alone with that.
Bez tebe ne mogu.
I can't do it without you.
In your private conversations with Mary, as mother, has she helped to correct your choices? Does she mention, I'd like you to work on this virtue and inspire you to grow in virtue? Does she get that specific with you?
No, never.
Ona nikad meni ništa nije rekla o meni.
Our Lady never said to me anything about me.
Ja moram kao i svi vi u molitvi kroz molitvu pokušati shvatiti.
Same like every one of you, I also have to pray and then through prayer to try to understand.
Jer sam kao telefon, recimo.
I'm like a telephone.
Ja, ona govori, ja prenosim.
She's talking and I'm transmitting.
A ja moram isto to činiti kao i svi vi.
And I also have to do the same as all of you. Yes.
You talk back?
To talk back?
Yeah, do you speak to her?
During the apparition, you mean?
Yes.
Gospa je ta koja vodi našu konverzaciju.
Well, Our Lady is the one who leads our conversation,
Ne ja.
not me.
Jer ja mogu nju vidjeti 100 godina.
Even if I could, let's say, see her for 100 years,
Ja uvijek znam da je ona majka Božja.
I always know that she's Mother of God,
A ja sam samo jedna koja hoda po ovoj zemlji.
and I'm just one who is walking on this earth.
Na primjer, ona meni ne treba reći, to me možeš pitati, to me ne možeš pitati.
For example, she doesn't have to tell me you may or you may not ask me this.
To u sebi osjetiš.
You feel it within yourself.
Ali uvijek ona ta koja sve vodi.
But it is always Our Lady who leads our conversation.
Practically speaking, what does your prayer life look like while, like, as a mother raising a family? Like,
What does Mirjana's prayer life looks like? A mother raising a family.
As a mother.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
Like practically how you organize your daily life such that you can fit in quiet time for prayer.
Ja se ustajem rano,
I wake up early
prije sviju,
before anybody else
jer želim početi dan s Bogom.
because I desire to start the day with God.
Ja i on sami.
Him and me together
To
alone.
su najljepši momenti.
Those are the most precious moments.
To je moj odmor duši.
That is my rest for my soul.
I kad počnem dan sa njim,
When I start the day with Him,
onda mi sve nekako bude lako tijekom dana.
then somehow everything turns to be easy during the day.
Onda radim sve ono što radi i ostale žene.
And then I do everything that other women do.
Zato kažem, kad kažu ti si privilegirana.
That's why I say when people say that I'm privileged,
A ja mislim da privilegirani ne peru, ne kuhaju, ne peglaju.
I think that privileged one do not wash, iron, or clean the house.
To sve i onda opet tijekom dana tražim momenatka, možemo biti samo ja i moj Bog.
All of that, and then again during the day I'm looking for a moment when I can be alone with my God.
I onda večer.
And then the evening.
Ja idem rano u sobu, povlačim se,
I go early to my room, I withdraw
da bih mogla završiti dan s molitvom.
in order to be able to finish my day with a prayer. Yes?
So you said read the Bible daily. Are there any specific books that you recommend or that Our Lady recommends that you read from the Bible?
Gospa rekla Bibliju.
Our Lady said Bible.
Ona mi nije ništa rekla precizno.
Shouldn't it say precisely anything else?
Ja kad sam ljuta čitam Stari Zavjet.
When I'm angry, I read the Old Covenant. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. When I'm not angry, then I read the New Covenant. Just a joke, just a joke. The whole time I have been talking to you how I am equally the same as every one of you in front of her.
Samo otvorite svoje srce i recite sve što imate.
Just open your heart and tell her everything you have.
Ona te sluša jer si joj ti važna.
She's listening to you because you are important to her.
Ja ću reći samo jedan primjer.
Let me just give you an example.
Jedan put kad sam se vraćala sa Plavog križa sa ukazanja,
One time when I was walking back from the Blue Cross after the apparition,
ja sam trebala reći nešto nekome.
I was supposed to say something to someone
Od Gospe.
from Our Lady.
Ali ja nisam znala šta i kome.
But I did not know what and to whom.
Sve to čudno.
All that is strange.
I vraćajući se kući,
And walking back home
s Plavog križa,
from the Blue Cross,
bilo je 1000 ljudi.
there was thousands of people.
I odjednom je ispred mene došla jedna djevojka.
And then suddenly a girl came in front of me,
I ja sam znala to je ona.
and I knew she was the one.
I ja sam joj rekla, ja ti trebam nešto reći, ali ne znam šta.
And I said to her, I'm supposed to tell you something, but I do not know what.
A ona mi je rekla, ja znam.
And then she replied, but I know.
I počela plakati i otišla.
And she started crying and she set out.
Znači, svako je od vas važan Gospi.
That means every one of you is important to Our Lady.
Svakog je od vas pozvala imenom da dođe.
She invited every one of you by name to come.
Ona treba apostole.
She needs apostles.
Znači sve vi što želite od nje,
So everything you wish from her,
kao od majke,
as from mother,
recite.
just say to her,
Ne trebate mene,
you don't need me,
samo otvoreno srce.
just an open heart.
Thank you.
Ja, velika.
Yes, Mother?
You've had a chance to visit heaven, to see heaven, heaven?
Ja se samo nadam.
Mirjana says, I hope that I will see heaven one day.
To su bili Vicka i Jakov.
Vicka and Yaakov had a vision of heaven.
Jer to je bilo na početku kazanja.
That was at the very beginning of the
I
apparitions.
taj dan je policija odvela nas vidioce.
And that day police took us visionaries.
Samo su Vicka i Jakov ostali.
Only Vicka and Yaakov succeeded to
I kad
stay.
je Gospod došla je k njima dvoma.
So when Our Lady appeared, she came only to two of them.
I rekla im je, sada ću vas povesti sa sobom.
And she said, now I will take you with me.
Oni su mislili da će umrijeti, idu s Gospodom.
They thought they were going to die because they go with Our Lady.
I Jakov je rekao, Gospod moja draga, uzmi Vicku, ona ima 7 braći i sestara i jedinac.
And then Yaakov said, dear Our Lady, take Vicka, she has 7 brothers and sisters, I'm the only one in the family. Our Lady smiled and she said, no, I just desire to show you that heaven, purgatory and hell do exist. Yaakov did like every man would do.
I'm not sure how her personality has been transformed and changed throughout her relationship with Our Lady.
Mirjana's personality? Has it changed over the course of time being with Our Lady?
Mi smo odgojeni u vjeri.
We were raised in faith.
Ne samo mi vidioci, čitavo selo.
Not only visionaries, but the entire village.
U svakoj se kući svako večer prije večere molila klonca.
In every family, every evening before the dinner, we pray rosary.
Bog je bio na prvom mjestu.
God was in the first
To je
place.
se u zraku osjećao.
You could feel it in the air,
Pogotovo u komunizmu,
especially under communism,
gdje ti trebaš birati.
where you need to choose.
Jer ako izabereš Boga, onda si neprijatelj države.
Because if you choose God, then you become enemy of the state.
Ovdje su svi izabrali Boga.
Here, everybody decided for God.
To znači ako hoćeš ceste, telefon, struju, sve moraš sam.
It meant if you want to have the roads paved, you want to have a telephone, a sewage system, you have to do it all on your own.
Jer za državu ne postoji.
Because you do not exist for the state.
Ali svejedno, svi su ovdje htjeli Boga.
But still, everybody here decided for God.
I u takvom sam ja odrasla.
And I grew up in such environment.
Uvijek su nas učili, ako trebaš umrijeti za Boga, živjet ćeš zauvijek.
They always told us that if you need to die for God, then you will live forever.
Ali ako kažeš ne Bogu, umrijet ćeš zauvijek.
But if you say no to God, then you'll die forever.
Ovdje su, na primjer, mnogi ljudi nestali tijekom noći.
For example, here, many people simply disappeared over the night.
Policija bi ih odvela.
Police would take them.
Znamo da su ih ubili,
We know they were killed,
ali ne znamo gdje su ih sahranili.
but we have no idea when they were buried.
Ali niko nije rekao, ja više ne želim tog Boga,
But
ne strah.
nobody never said, I don't want that God, I'm afraid.
Tako sam i ja odrasla.
That's the way I grew up.
Gospa je to samo još više približila.
I'll let it just bring it all much closer.
Nekako da je Bog ljubav, da je s nama,
That God is love, that He's with us,
da je ona majka.
that She's mother.
Nekako je sve to nekako blisko.
Somehow all of that became more familiar.
Naprimjer, uvijek sam mislila Bog je na nebu
Because before I always thought God is in heaven,
i on samo gleda šta ćemo pogriješiti da nas kazni.
just waiting for us to make a mistake in order to punish us.
Ali Gospod me uči sasvim suprotno.
But Our Lady has been teaching completely different.
Da je Bog ljubav,
That God is love,
uvijek spreman oprostiti svoje djece.
always ready to forgive His children.
Neke stvari.
Things like that.
Što mi tiče,
It's 9:30, Mass is at 10, so we'll have to definitely finish.
možemo završiti s nama.
We can finish with one Hail Mary.
I kad su već privilegirani da imamo svećenike s nama, možemo ga za noć zablagosloviti.
And as we are so privileged to have a priest with us, we can ask him for blessing. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Queen of Peace, pray for us.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you and keep you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.